Today we're going to make a fermented strawberry soda, and the recipe is in my new cookbook, The Modern Pioneer Pantry. And if you've never made fermented soda before, you're in for a treat. This is very easy to make. It's also very rich in good bacteria, probiotics that improve our gut health. But best of all, it's really tasty. And once you make fermented homemade soda, you're never going to buy soda at the grocery store again. Hi, sweet friends. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm Mary from marysnest.com and author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook and now the Modern Pioneer Pantry. And I'd like to welcome you to my kitchen. Now, to make a fermented strawberry soda, you're going to want 6 cups of sliced strawberries. Now, whatever fruit you're using, you're going to want 6 cups. If it's a larger fruit like a strawberry or an apple, a peach, pear, so on and so forth, you just want to have it sliced. If it's a small berry like a blueberry, blackberry, raspberry, those you can just fill your cup and not worry about any cutting up. Next, you're going to want the juice of 1 lemon, and you're going to want 1/3 cup of sugar. We're going to talk about the sugar in a minute, but let's get to the last ingredient we're going to need to make this fermented strawberry soda, and that is something called a ginger bug. Whenever you want to make a homemade fermented soda, it's best to start it with what's known as a ginger bug. And I include a recipe in the Modern Pioneer Pantry for how to make a ginger bug so you can always be prepared to make homemade fermented sodas. But I'm also going to share with you today how to do this. Making a ginger bug is very easy. All you're going to do is grate some ginger, add a little water and a little white sugar, and you're going to cover it, and then you're going to leave it on your counter for a day. And then the next day, you're going to do the same. You're going to add a little grated ginger, a little more water, a little bit of sugar, and you're going to let it rest again on your counter. You're going to do this for 5 days. After 5 days, you're going to have a beautiful, in essence, fermented ginger that's going to be all bubbly, full of good bugs, good bacteria, rich in probiotics, and ready to do its job to ferment your strawberries and turn them into a fermented soda. Now, before we make this fermented strawberry soda, I want to say a word about the sugar. I often get a lot of questions when it comes to different fermentations like this. Can I use a different type of sugar, a different type of sweetener? And the answer is yes. You can certainly use sucanat, or some of you may know it as rapadura, depending on where you live in the world. It's simply the sugarcane juice that's been dried into crystals. It has all of the nutrients still intact and has not been, and those nutrients have not been stripped out the way they are with white sugar. You could also use coconut sugar, maple sugar, date sugar, any sugar like that or any sweetener like that. However, depending on which one you use, it will slightly change the taste as well as the color of your fermented soda. And depending where you are on your traditional foods journey, that may matter to you. If you're at the very beginning of your traditional foods journey and you're trying to transition to consuming fermented foods and you want them to look as familiar to you as possible, and especially, that's my pup if you're hearing the jingling, you want them to look as similar to what you might buy at the grocery store, especially if you're feeding your family and you're trying to get them to transition to traditional foods. It can sometimes be best if it looks very familiar. And if you use these alternative sweeteners, sometimes the food will be a different color and won't look as familiar or as inviting as if you had just used white sugar. Now, I do want to share something with you in defense of using white sugar when it comes to making a fermented soda. During the process of fermentation, the good bacteria is going to gobble up a lot of this sugar and use it as food that creates the fermentation. So in the end, the soda isn't getting so much of its sweetness from white sugar, it's getting its sweetness from the fruit, Fermented soda has a very fruity flavor because it's relying on the fruit for a lot of its sweetness, because the good bacteria during the fermentation process has eaten up a lot of this white sugar. So don't feel too bad about using white sugar when you're making a homemade fermented soda. Now, the first step for making a fermented strawberry soda is to put all of your strawberries, your sugar, and your lemon juice into a food processor or a blender. I like using a food processor, but if you want to use a blender, that's fine too. You may just have to stop it periodically and scrape down the sides so that everything is beautifully pureed. I've got my strawberries in the food processor. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add in this sugar, and then we've got the lemon juice too. Now we're going to blend this just until it's a beautiful smooth puree. Now that the strawberries are beautifully pureed, you're going to want to get a big bowl and a colander or a mesh strainer, whatever you have, and then some type of clean cloth or cheesecloth. I really like these what they call flour sack towels. I use these for a variety of kitchen tasks, and they work perfectly when you want to strain something like a puree where you want just the juice. Then once we've got our colander lined with this flour sack towel or cheesecloth, whatever you have, we're going to go ahead and pour our strawberry puree right into our lined colander. I'm just going to get a little spatula here to get out every little last bit of goodness. We'll just go ahead and set this aside for a little bit while the juice from the puree drains down into the bowl. Now, while that's draining, I want to talk to you about all of these strawberry tops that I removed when I was slicing the strawberries. Now, I'm a huge proponent of a no-waste kitchen, or at least a low-waste kitchen, and I don't want to throw out these strawberry tops. What I'm going to show you to do with these is to make a fruit scrap vinegar. In this case, it's a strawberry scrap vinegar. Vinegars like this can often be sold in gourmet stores and be on the expensive side, but I'm going to show you how to take these scraps and turn them into some of the nicest tasting vinegar you've ever had. Now, to make this strawberry scrap vinegar, you're going to want a half-gallon glass jar. Then you're just going to go ahead, take your scraps, and put them into your jar. Once you get your strawberry top scraps into your jar, you're going to want to go ahead and add a 1/4 cup of sugar. And that white sugar is going to serve as food for the good bacteria during the fermentation process of making this vinegar. Now, I want to address 2 questions that I often get when it comes to fermentation and using sweeteners, whether it's the white sugar or some of the alternative sweeteners we mentioned earlier. I will often get the question, number 1, can I use stevia or some sort of low-cal or no-cal sweetener? And unfortunately, no, that won't work because that doesn't provide any food for the good bacteria to eat. And the second question is, can I use honey? And yes, you can use honey. Now, people will often say, yes, but honey is an antibacterial, it'll kill the good bacteria. But that's not true. Yes, honey is an antibacterial, but it kills bacteria through suffocation. So if you mix the honey in water, the good bacteria will gobble it up as food. It can no longer suffocate the good bacteria because it's been diluted in the water. So yes, you can use honey. And if in making this vinegar, it makes you feel better to use an alternative sweetener that will darken the final product, the vinegar, or honey, which if you use like a clover honey, a light colored honey, it won't affect the color as much. But again, there is going to be some changes in taste. However, if that makes you feel more comfortable, you can certainly do that. But trust me, after the fermentation process involved to make vinegar, you're not going to taste any sugar. This is not going to be sweet. The good bacteria is going to gobble this up over a 30-day process that it takes to make a fruit scrap vinegar. Next, you're going to go ahead and just add some water to this. If you have water that doesn't contain chlorine, all the better, because chlorine can interfere with the fermentation process. It's not the end of the world, so don't worry if all you have available to you is tap water. But if you have some sort of filtered water or chlorine-free water, that'll work very well. Now, I'm only going to fill this up to about that point, because as this ferments, sometimes things can bubble up and spill over. So often when it comes to ferments, I often recommend putting them into a bowl like this that can help avoid making a mess. So that's up to you, but something that I generally recommend. Now, once you get this into your jar, you just want to take a wooden spoon, clean of course. What I'm going to use is a chopstick, and I'm just going to give this a spin to help some of that sugar dissolve into the water. Alrighty, now that that sugar is dissolved, the next thing you're going to want to do is get a paper towel or a clean cloth. Those little frilly coffee filters can work very well too, and you're simply going to cover your vinegar, and you're going to use a rubber band to keep this on top. This will help keep out any dust and flying bugaboos, whatever the case may be. Now, this is known as an aerobic fermentation, one that requires air to have this fermentation process take place. There's also anaerobic fermentation, which means without air, and that's often seen when you make fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, where you put them in a jar with the vegetable and the salt, and you weigh it all down, and then you put the lid on to keep air out. That's an anaerobic. This is an aerobic fermentation, and they use different types of good bacteria and yeasts to create the fermented product. On one, it's the good bacteria that's already occurring on the vegetable. In this one, it's the good bacteria and yeast in the air that are helping this process along. Now you're going to want to put this somewhere in your kitchen, out of direct sunlight, because ferments don't like extreme temperature changes, but you're going to want to put it in a place in your kitchen, out of direct sunlight. Aerobic fermentations like this aren't super temperature sensitive the same way that anaerobic ferments are, but generally somewhere between 68 degrees Fahrenheit and 72 degrees Fahrenheit is a great place in terms of a temperature range for fermentation to occur. A little cooler, a little warmer, it's not a big deal, but 68 degrees Fahrenheit to 72 degrees Fahrenheit is the sweet spot. Now, when it comes to making vinegar, a homemade fruit scrap vinegar like this, twice a day, you're going to want to remove your little cap, and you're going to want to give this a stir. And that just helps redistribute all of the fruit, if there's any that's kind of coming to the top, and just to aerate it, to get some good yeast and bacteria, good bacteria that are in the air, into your vinegar in the making, to help the whole process along. Now, if you forget, don't worry about it. Just stir it when you remember. And if you find you can only remember stirring it once a day, that's fine too. These type of fermentations are very forgiving. And then what's beautiful is within a few days, you're going to start to see little bubbles working up their way up the sides, coming up to the top. You may see the level kind of rising because of the fermentation. You may see kind of what looks like a foam forming on top. It's a lot of fun to watch, and you know that you are on a successful route to fermenting this, to creating your vinegar. And after 30 days, you're going to use your colander or your mesh strainer over a bowl lined with a cheesecloth, and you're going to strain out the strawberry scraps, and you're going to have a magnificent strawberry vinegar. Now, the strawberries are going to be quite spent, or the strawberry scraps at that point are going to be quite spent, a little bit mushy, and so on and so forth. You will discover this when you go through the vinegar making process. At that point, you can simply discard them, Or if you want to do the type of things my mom did, who never wasted anything, you can put them in a blender and puree them, and then do something that's known as cold composting, where you dig a hole in your garden, in your kitchen garden, and you basically bury the strawberry scrap puree. And what's ever left in those strawberries, and including the good bacteria that's clinging to them, will help feed your garden. Now, coming back to the strawberry soda, the fermented strawberry soda, we're going to go ahead and gather up, it's a little messy, but we're going to go ahead and gather up our cheesecloth, and we're just going to start squeezing our puree into our mesh strainer or our colander, whatever you have, and you're just going to continue to do this to get every little last bit of liquid out of your puree. Now, the reason we're straining this through the cheesecloth or the flour sack towel, whatever you have, is because we want to get out all those little seeds. We don't want those seeds in our strawberry soda. It's a little bit of a messy job, but it's actually kind of fun. It's great if you have kids in the house too, because they'll love really squeezing that and getting every last little bit of the strawberry puree out of this mixture. Now, to make our strawberry soda, we need 4 cups of liquid. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is measure this puree, this strained puree that we've got all the seeds out of. I'm going to measure this into a 4-cup measuring cup. Boy, when you make this, you're just going to love it. The aroma is so amazing. I'm actually going to go put this in my sink because it's dripping a little. Now, with a clean utensil, you just want to scoop out some of your ginger bug into a 1/4 cup measure. Then you're going to go ahead and add the ginger bug to your strawberry puree. Now you want to take a clean whisk and just give this a little stir to incorporate that ginger bug throughout the puree. Now we're going to take some water. As I mentioned, it's the same as with the vinegar in the making. We want to use filtered or chlorine-free water. If you don't have it, again, it's not the end of the world. It just may slightly affect the fermentation process. But you're going to want to go ahead and add in water until you get to 4 cups. We need 4 cups total in liquid. Again, I'm just going to give this another stir just to get the water all throughout, mixed well with the puree and the ginger bug. Now you want to go ahead and pour your entire mixture into a 1/2 gallon jar. Then you want to go ahead, get a lid, put this on your jar, tighten it, and then you want to put this in an area out of direct sunlight, approximately 68 degrees Fahrenheit to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. As I mentioned earlier, like with the vinegar, a little cooler, a little warmer. It's not the end of the world, but that is the sweet spot. After about 24 hours, you may start to see a little bubbling. And that's a good sign that the fermentation process is beginning. After the first day, on the second day, you're going to start seeing even more bubbles and more of the fermentation process taking place. You can taste the soda at that point. You may like the level of effervescence that it has and the level of sweetness. If so, it's time to decant. If you want it a little more tangy and a little more stronger effervescent, then you're going to let it ferment for the 3rd day and even up to the 4th day. Generally, whenever you're fermenting fruit, you really don't want to go past 3 or 4 days because it can at that point start turning more alcohol flavored or vinegar flavored. By the 4th day, it should be beautifully fizzy and have a wonderful flavor. And now, when you get ready to decant it, all you're going to want to do is decant it into some sort of pitcher or bowl using a mesh strainer. You don't need the flour sack towel at this point because all you're going to be doing is straining out the ginger, which has been shredded and is going to be larger than the tight mesh of a mesh strainer. Now, if you like the idea of having a little bit of that grated ginger in the bottom of the bottle in which you decant your strawberry soda, you don't need to worry about using the mesh strainer. You can just go ahead, put a funnel on a bottle, and start to decant your strawberry soda, your fermented strawberry soda, and whatever little bits of grated ginger get into the bottle is fine. It also, as you refrigerate it, will add a little bit more of a ginger kick to the final product. Now I'm going to put this out of the way and let it continue to ferment, and I'm going to show you what the final product looks like. Once you've decanted your strawberry soda, your fermented strawberry soda, it's ready to go into the fridge. Now in a bottle like this with a screw on top, it will stay effervescent for a few days, and I'm fine with that. But if you want it to stay effervescent for longer, then you're going to need some type of swing top bottle. But if you decide to use one of these, you want to make sure that they are specifically made for decanting effervescent beverages. We consider things like fermented strawberry soda a treat, so I'm happy to put it in a bottle like this, and we'll enjoy it over the next few days while it's still effervescent. These bottles always make me a little nervous, but if you do use a swing top bottle that is made for decanting effervescent beverages, I recommend that you do put this into some type of container, or if you have smaller bottles, into some type of container, and then refrigerate them. Because in the event that they do break, which does happen sometimes, at least the mess will be contained in the container in which you put your swing top bottles. But in a swing top bottle like this, it's going to stay effervescent. Your fermented soda is going to stay effervescent basically indefinitely. Now, if you'd like to learn how to make more fermented beverages like kombucha and kefir and tepeche, be sure to click on this video over here where I have a whole curated playlist of fermented beverages for you. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.